Hello and welcome. If you're a subscriber to my channel, you may have already seen my video on how to make your very own paper mache pulp. Well, today we're switching gears and getting back to basics with Paper Mache 101. We all have our favorites, but sometimes it's a good idea to try something new. Like when you go to your favorite restaurant, you order your favorite dish, and the waiter recommends something a little different. While the strip method was my first interaction with paper mache, over the years, paper pulp has become my go-to, and I use the two interchangeably. In this tutorial, I'll be serving up a demonstration of the most basic paper mache method, using paper strips and glue. Unlike paper pulp, this method employs a process of layering paper dipped into glue or other binding solution onto a form to build up a hardened object. If you haven't yet seen my paper pulp tutorial, I'll go ahead and post a link at the top right, since this video is going to focus on the strip method. White glue, paper, and water are the basic supplies you'll need. If you haven't already guessed, regular newspaper is the most commonly used paper for paper mache, but you can use pretty much any type of paper you like. I recommend experimenting to find out which is your favorite, since every type of paper will give you a different result depending on weight, composition, and other factors. For the mixture to dip the paper, I use basic white glue, and I simply add water until it reaches the consistency of heavy cream. Just a side note, there are other mixtures used for dipping paper mache, like the classic flour and water mixture, and also wallpaper paste. I've used both of these, but I've found that white glue works best for me. Now we prep the paper. A good rule of thumb is smaller strips or smaller pieces are great for small detail. Larger strips are great for covering larger areas quicker. While strips are not mandatory, I find them useful because you can run them through the mixture quickly and easily, and then rip them into smaller pieces as you layer. For this method of paper mache, you will need a shape to build on. Look around for objects that have the shape and size that you want to use alone or to connect together to create the object you want to make. There's really no limit to the types of objects you can use. You can use plastics, you can use balloons, you can use wire hangers that you open and reshape. Craft wire, like this soft type, is great for making figurines. You can use cardboard, which is especially easy to tape together to make bigger or more complicated shapes. One of my favorites is aluminum foil because it's so easy to shape into different objects like animals or figures or just about anything that you can easily apply the paper layering method to. Another favorite of mine is plastic bags, and I actually did a video for that, which I'll link below. Another great option, which we'll get into deeper on a later video, is non-drying craft clay. Pipe cleaners and straws for little details. I could literally go on forever, but since I don't want to overwhelm you, I'm going to stop here with this little list. Let's talk about the dipping process so I can give you some tips. First of all, if your water and glue mixture is too thin, your paper will not absorb it, it will not soften up, and it will not lie smoothly onto your object or your form. If your mixture is too thick, your paper will just break under the weight of it. So it's a trial and error, but try to go with a heavy cream consistency. Dip each strip slowly to absorb the glue mixture, and then use your fingers to remove the excess from your paper. Your paper should be soggy enough to stick and lie smoothly against your shape. You'll want to completely cover your form. And as a general rule, if you want your form to be a hard, sturdy shape, you'll need to apply at least 7 layers. I realize that sounds like a lot, and 7 layers is not necessarily mandatory for small items, but use your own judgment. It's great to get a strong surface on larger items. Pro tip: small corners, small edges, tiny details are where those skinny strips and little pieces of paper will come in handy. You may find yourself tearing them even smaller as you work. Another pro tip: as you're layering, adding a little bit of extra glue mixture to your surface, to your paper layers as you go, will help you smooth them easier. Okay, true confession. Often when I'm doing a piece using this layering technique, I will only do the first 2 layers and allow them to dry and harden. The reason is that dry, hard paper mache is actually easier to add layers to than a smooth surface. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it is easier for me, especially if it's sort of a bunch of different shapes taped together or assembled in some sort of way. Basically, it's like I'm establishing a form, connecting it all, and then I go back in and add layers. So now let me just demonstrate on a different shape. This is a balloon, which is a common item used for doing layering technique because it can be used to make vases, globes, all kinds of things. And they can be blown up to different sizes, taped together, and they can actually be popped and removed once the form is hardened. Of course, I'll be doing a more detailed video on that technique later, along with some other items that you can actually remove from the paper mache once it's dry, but that's a whole nother ball game. So we'll save that topic for a later video. I just want to point out that on this smaller shape, you can see that I've already ripped up the paper into smaller pieces, and I'm just establishing a layer of paper mache. And then as it gets more solid, I can start to use slightly bigger pieces. A lot of the objects used to create paper mache forms, especially using this layered technique, are throwaway items that remain within the forms. In some cases, you will, however, want to remove the form. We'll use a bowl, for example. This is a tiny plastic bowl, and all I've done is coat the inside with petroleum jelly. This is what's known as a release agent, and it will help to remove or pry the paper, the hardened paper, from the bowl once it's dry. There are, of course, other ways to remove paper mache from its mold or form. Those include items such as plastic cling wrap. You could use foil for this. You can use baby powder as a release agent. There are a number of other things, but that's something else that I'll get into in future videos. So using the same layering technique, we're going to cover the inside of the bowl, and once we have several layers and the paper is fully dried and hardened, it's easy to lift it out of the plastic form. Here's a quick example of connecting two objects to create a single form. Disclaimer, I don't have any particular thing in mind when I'm making this. I'm just going with it and showing you how two separate things can become one piece. Let me tell you something. Masking tape is your friend. Write that down, remember it. You should always have masking tape on hand if you're doing any kind of paper mache. And now the magic. Once I cover this and it dries and hardens, this thing is all one deal. It's not coming apart. It's like you manufactured a whole new object. Fair warning, if you're an auntie like me, a parent, an older sibling, now that you're in possession of this expertise, you may be required to assist with school projects. Just saying. Now that I'm looking at this thing, it's saying pedestal to me. I wouldn't use it for that unless I added some layers of cardboard to that plastic lid for strength, but that's the general idea I'm getting. And again, we're smoothing, using extra mixture to smooth the surface out. Now I'll show you a couple of things I've made using this technique. This is a miniature screen panel made from layers of cardboard with rope and pulp shapes sculpted onto the surface. And let's use the magic of TV to speed this up. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, please go ahead and hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button for notifications so you don't miss out on any of the creative tutorials coming up on this channel. So the same layering technique was used for this piece. The only difference being that there were objects and shapes used underneath to create the design.
Wow!
See this goofy grin? It's there because you're here. And if you've watched this far, we're basically best friends. So why not make it official and click the subscribe button? You'll get the inside scoop, including my best tips to all kinds of creative fun, not just paper mache. And the space to ask questions, share your own ideas, and to connect with other creative people like yourself. Want to be the first to know when a new video is live? Click the bell button for notifications. Want to support this channel and the work happening here? Head on over to Patreon and become a patron. Links are all below. With all that being said, I appreciate you. I'm so happy you're here. I hope you're inspired, and I will see you in the next one.